So is this the time to sell a property in Southern California? Well, the first thing is, yes, we can look at the stats. And the stats will show you that some properties, like the one I just sold, still get multiple offers. We had 10 written multiple offers and more. It was a desirable property in a desirable area, and we were willing to sell it what fair market value was, which is very easy to determine when you get 10 offers and you're telling them about each other and they all kind of come up to about the same price. Sometimes because you said that's where we are, and sometimes because people arrive there on their own. Some people have said, okay, well, if you're willing to close at 1.7, we'll do it. Can you come out and take a look with your appraiser, whatever you're going to do? And they back down to that number without even knowing where that number was. So we knew where price our seller was willing to be at fair market value. That happened to be where a lot of the appraisers were coming in, and that property got 10 offers written and many more calls. So crazy good market, as usual, in San Diego for some properties. However, days on market are going up, exceeding. As of 2 weeks ago when I had this discussion, days on market was up over 60 in San Diego, which was massive. And if you, I've done this on and off for years. Days on market is one of the best indicators of whether you're in a buyer or seller market, because you take the days on market and you also look at absorption rates, which is properties for sale versus properties being purchased. And at some point in time, you fall into a balanced market, and then you could fall into a buyer's market. What usually leads is days on market, because you start accumulating more properties, which then moves up absorption rate, and then you leave. Last time I looked, we were still technically in a seller's market. We had less than 3 months property, but with days on market going up to 60, unless the spring changes dramatically, and it usually takes about a month to have all those numbers filter through, unless the spring changes dramatically, we might be getting into a balanced market. At least for some houses in some areas, we might even already be there. Oddly, in my examination, the luxury market wasn't really changing that much. At the time, the properties, depending on loans, that were starting to go up because interest rates were high. Now, this was right before the tariffs and Trump. In the bond market, the prices going up, so yields going down. So now we've got the balancing of the stock market got crushed, which always, when the stock market gets crushed, it always slows down purchases dramatically, because people who thought they had a lot of money now have a lot less. People who were depending on those assets to qualify for loans now have less. People are going to take some money out of the market to buy homes and deposits. They can't do it. So the market falling apart means if you can sell now, and we're going to get to this, if you have a good exit strategy, this is probably the time if you can still do it. Or the market might come back. But the good news is interest rates are going down. So if you buy in another area, you might not have to pay as much on a monthly basis if you're using loans. So basically, my answer to you is we would check out your tax consequences. Like if you have appreciation and it's just you, $250,000 of that appreciation can be written off on your taxes if you've lived in the property for 2 of the last 5 years. I'm not talking about investment properties. That's another discussion that I usually have to bring an accountant in. But my questions are very important. Like you want to talk to a lawyer, someone who knows what they're talking about before you just go to your accountant. But that's a side note. We're just talking about regular people who lived in this property. If you lived in it 2 of the last 5 years and it's just you can write off $250,000. So if you have $1 million in equity after your loan and your expenses, the first $250,000 no taxes, then you'll be paying taxes on $750,000. And that could put you with your current income into a different tax bracket altogether, and you'll be spending more money than you thought. If you're a couple, $500,000. So a lot of people do have more than $500,000 in gains. So they get to take out $500,000 tax-free, but they're still going to be paying taxes on the rest of the gain. This is one of the reasons why people are stuck in properties. It's not just that interest rates are high. It's that so many people have massive gains, and they're kind of stuck because they're like, by the time I'm done paying taxes on this, even though I'm downsizing by 50%, I don't really have that much cash. It's not worth it to me. So the capital gains are causing some of the lack of liquidity in our market. After we go over the risks of selling, if you still can see a good reason to buy a home, I think that this is a great time. I'm worried about, and we're always worried, but we know every year San Diego still goes up except for, 08, 09. But it does feel a little different this time with the stock market going down in the spring. I mean, this is going to put a damper on a lot of potential purchases. But it doesn't even matter, because if we're hurt here and there's a strong market, they're going to get hurt more in other markets. So if you're happy about moving to Texas, moving to Arizona, moving to Florida, don't make the mistake I did and go in and buy right away. Go in and rent. I know it's going to cost a little money, but you're selling a huge asset here. You probably have you're going to put a lot of cash in the bank. Go there and rent and just deal with the $10,000 or whatever the moving expenses that you'd have to do twice. Ideally, you rent with a flexible lease, one that you wouldn't mind paying if you all of a sudden see a great property you want to move into. One where you could sublease. Like we even though I'm not licensed in that state, I'd say very important. What happens if you sublease? I talked to the realtors that we set you up with. We want to know what their experience is being able to place people into properties. So maybe you lose $500 a month for 4 months if you see an incredible deal that you can't live without. So you go there giving yourself maximum flexibility. I made the mistake of working with a realtor who didn't know the area that well. My wife and I did. And we bought homes when we were little kids in Florida. We moved from San Diego. Our house doubled. We were just under the capital gains. We're like, woo, let's go to Florida, invest in real estate. We bought 3 or 4 properties. The home we moved in was 1.5 miles from where it turned out we really wanted to be, with the good elementary school and the good middle schools. And that actually was one of the reasons we got caught when the market toppled. We stayed in our home. We were building another. We had 2 investments. They all went down at once. We got smoked. I came back limping. Even though we went there with like almost $500,000 plus our own money, we came back. We lost so much money. We went to the closing table with our own cash to avoid a deficiency. $70,000 of money that I had before we started that I gave back. It was brutal. Very, very demoralizing. Caused me to have all sorts of, like, what did I have? I got plantar fasciitis out of the stress. It was brutal. My hair probably turned gray. Don't make the mistakes. Learn. Go in with a plan. But imagine being there as the market's falling apart and you're seeing, like, let me tell you the greatest story I know. My brother, who's now a golf teaching pro, this is 20 years ago, basically during the last Brazilian economic crisis. My brother worked with a guy in the golf shop with him. Cool guy. I met him a bunch. Super laid back. His dad was a limo driver up in California, San Francisco area. Turned out he had no idea, like the guy was running a golf shop, he had no idea his dad had $4 million in the bank. When his dad died, he got a call. Turned out his dad had followed the investment advice of the guy he was working for, and it worked out well. And he had $4 million. My brother's good friend quit and started traveling the world. He happened to be in Brazil during the currency crisis. At the time, multi-million-dollar properties were going for $300,000 or $400,000 if you pay in American dollars, not the Brazilian real. He bought 2 properties, one to live in, one in investment, and last I heard, he lived happily ever after. So I mean, like, imagine like that the Rogers guy who used to be on CNBC all the time. He goes, he in his investments, he likes to wait till he sees a pile of money and goes in there and sweeps it up. Well, now might be the time. If first of all, if you want to move there and live there, at some point you're like, I'm happy to live here for that price, and I don't mind if the market goes down another 30 or 40 or even 50%. I'm happy here. I can do this. I would just make sure that I wasn't in with a lot of condos where the tax base might explode to the downside, crater to the downside, and then the local utilities and the cops and everything don't have the money to protect you. So I would stay away from those condos that the people cannot put the money up to make the repairs that are necessary for the hurricanes. I'd stay away from those areas, but there's plenty of others where you're like, I can move in this neighborhood. It's unlikely to become a disaster area because it's so good, and I like this price. Well, now you're ready to buy. Now, whether you're ready to invest, I'd wait till I saw days on market turning around. But anyway, I think that I've got the point across, is that it's a great time to sell. It could be, but it depends on what you're doing. If what you're doing makes sense financially, then it could be a great time. I don't think you should say to yourself, as I made the mistake thinking, California is about to collapse, or the bond market's about to collapse. The Fed is likely to intervene at least once or twice. Are they going to lose control in like a nuclear reactor reaching critical? I doubt it. And we've seen they can flood the market. They've got high interest rates again. They've got the monetary policy. They could do that again. They were genius in terms of what they try to do. I don't think they necessarily help us manipulating policy in the long run. In fact, they're responsible for a vast amount of our inflation. But can you count on California cratering? It's a difficult thing to do. I tried to believe it once, and it was a mistake. I came back and paid a lot of money for a house. I've seen others make that same mistake. So, like, if you're leaving, really believe you're happy leaving. Really know that you might be, as I was in Florida, saying, I got 3 properties and it's still not going up as much as the house I sold in San Diego. That can happen. Know that properties dropped. It collapsed like 40, 50% down for about a year before they went down back here. We had time to sell our properties, go to the closing table, move back, have our neighbors tell us for 6 months we should buy a house before the properties came down here. Literally. I remember it vividly. My wife and I said, we just can't talk to people about it. So all our neighbors don't believe we're renting. They think we're making a mistake, and they don't want to hear about their houses are likely to collapse here, even though we know. It's why the Goldman Sachs guy, Paulson, wasn't brilliant when they sold, when they probably sold. I'm sure the people buying up all that debt in Europe were incentivized to do it. I don't think anyone was that stupid in Europe either. A lot of Europeans have Florida houses. But Paulson wasn't a genius. He probably had a property in Florida, and so his property collapsed a year before the market did. Or before the bond market, 6 months before the bond market did. About a year before California did. But anyway, these are the things that we will talk about during a seller strategy session. Now, other things. I'll have another video. But, if you're going to work with us, I think you want to do your disclosures with an attorney so you can do them just right. Most people overdo them. Some people underdo them. I got to answer this call. But go to strategysession.winnerscheck.com or quick click the link and we'll talk on the phone. And if we want to go further, we'll talk more. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.